listening to the Blue Jay Breakdown.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode or edition of Blue Jay Breakdown. Jacob Padilla, Mike Sautter, here to break down Creighton men's basketball. We're going to talk about the men's side of things, which rocky last few weeks, I guess. We haven't done one of these in a couple weeks because...
And a lot's happened since we last recorded.
Up and down?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they went through a stretch there losing 3 out of 4.
Right.
But the one win was a big one.
It's a pretty big win.
Yeah. And since then...
Should have maybe.
Yeah. And we're recording this on after they secured their first Big East win against Georgetown. And even within that game, it looked a little rocky. First half, not great. And then the second half, like, oh, okay, there it is. They woke up and remembered who they are. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's kind of
right there, right? Like, so let's just look. Villanova lost overtime, probably should have won.
Yeah.
Marquette were winning by, I mean, just it was 14-2 to start the game. You got to put
up
that
11,
yeah, you got to put that one away, like, and then lost by 5. They're right there. It just, closed the deal, right? Yeah. Like the UNLV game, happens, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. They went 9-2 in non-conference with the 77th non-conference strength of schedule according to KenPom. Their best wins was that Alabama one I talked about, the one win in the stretch of 3 out of 4 losses. KenPom absolutely loves Alabama. The top 10 team, they're ranked 7th. Their non-conference schedule has been ridiculous.
Yeah, really tough.
Nothing but top 25 teams and multiple top 10 teams. But then Nebraska is starting to look like an even better win.
Right. If Nebraska can continue to win, that'll only help.
Yep. Coming off a big win there for the Huskers. And then Iowa is kind of the other one, is a top 75 win. They're not playing great, but I mean, they're still better than Oklahoma State.
There you go. That'll work.
There's not a ton on there, but that Alabama win, hopefully for Creighton's sake, that Titan will kind of pick up some wins in conference play and start picking up their resume, because they certainly have the metrics to be a great win for them.
Even a Colorado State loss isn't bad.
That's not a bad one. Yeah. What we've seen of them.
Looks pretty good right
now.
Top
30 team. Yeah. Top 30 team. Yeah. So that one you can, it was rough in the moment, but you can kind of okay, it's not going to hurt you. That UNLV loss will hurt you. 94th in KenPom right now, UNLV was, and Creighton just played very poorly in that one. But when you drop a game like that, you have to make up for it later in the conference. And that's where kind of the 0-2
is so good.
Yeah. And that's where the 0-2 start hurts you. It's all right, 2 chances here to get really good wins to offset that bad loss. You were in control of both games and just let it slip away. And that's where kind of this team finds itself. They've got to find a way to be more consistent, sustain what they do well, and kind of not let other teams dictate things to the degree that they have thus far. Like in that Villanova game, they scored 4 points in the last 10 minutes of the first half.
Unacceptable.
Like a Creighton team scored 4 points in 10 minutes, and a lot of it was turnovers. They had season high 16 turnovers in that game. There was just some dumb ones, some boneheaded ones. That was a big emphasis. And then you go to Marquette and another 15 turnovers in that game. And between turnovers and giving up offensive rebounds, which that hasn't been, they've been one of the best defensive rebounding teams in the country, which is why that hurt them so much in that game. They box out a little bit better, work a little bit harder on the glass, 1 or 2 less turnovers there, and they're walking out of there with a win over a top 10 team. That's where it hurts. Just execute a little bit better. Don't change anything. We can talk about some of the flaws that have shown up from a roster construction standpoint, the way guys are playing, but little things that are under their control in terms of effort on the glass, being smart, making better decisions. They really cost them those 2 games. And it carried over into the start of that Georgetown game where 11 turnovers in the first half. And there were all kinds of turnovers. There a couple of travels, they're late on some passes and deciding to throw it when the window is no longer there, just lost it once or twice. And I heard from Baylor Shireman today as we record this on Thursday ahead of their Providence game on Saturday. Is just guys trying to do too much. Things weren't flowing early, and all right, I got to go make a play, and then they got themselves into trouble.
Forcing stuff.
Second half, they executed much better. They only turned it over 3 times, and all 3 were dead ball turnovers. So they got a chance to get back and get their defense set. And they just absolutely rolled Georgetown in the second half. They scored on 14 of their first 17 possessions. The off-ball movement was a lot better. They're doing a better job of getting downhill off ball screens, attacking closeouts, and then guys off the ball were moving and making themselves options. And that's going to be the key for them. They can't get stagnant. They can't let ball pressure slow down their offense, bog things down, and that's too much of what we've seen so far.
And defensively too. I mean, it's kind of where we at. It is what it is at this point. Like you funnel everything to Kalkbrenner. It's just that's the style. It's what you should do.
Yeah, and for it's worked for the most part. Like I think there have been some miscommunications, guys kind of not switching when they need to. Some breakdowns. I think Kalkbrenner's been late, by his standards. I don't know that he's been as consistent as he has been in the past this season. But even with some of those kind of lapses, they're still 21st in defensive efficiency on KenPom right now. So I think their defense, they're gonna be fine. There's some weak points in the lineup. They don't have elite defenders 1 through 5, but as a team, I think they're executing well enough on that end. I mean, you hold Marquette to 72 points in their place.
Yeah,
that should be a win. You hold Villanova to 68 points in overtime.
Especially
that should be a win
at home.
Yeah. So that's going to be the key, is finding a way to get back to playing the way that they want to. Their guards have to be better. They've got to handle pressure better, and they got to get into their sets better. They can't let teams pressure them out to half court. They got to find a way to not get bogged down so much in the half court, and
move
whether
the ball
that's
quicker.
100%. And it's on everybody. It's on setting better screens. It's on being smarter about using your screens, getting to the right spots, cutting hard off the ball to get yourself open. Everybody can take a part in improving this offense, and they need to. So the second half against Georgetown was a definite improvement. It's good to see, but Georgetown is very bad.
Yeah.
So now the question is, can you sustain that, execute at a similar rate against a much better defense where you're going to face more resistance? And that's what we'll have to see moving forward here. I mentioned 21st on defense. They're 20th on offense somehow, despite some of the recent struggles. And a lot of that, they're 4th in effective field goal percentage, one of the best 2-point shooting teams in the country. And they're 46th in 3-point percentage, even with some of their poor shooting games. They're still at 37.2%. So they're still, their metrics are still very strong. If they can figure a few things out, get over the hump in one of these big games, I think fans will start to feel a lot better about where they are. It's just been obviously a rough stretch with some missed opportunities there. And I mean, coming off of last year and the run they made late and the roster changes, they're still kind of trying to figure out how to make things click with Stephen Ashworth, with Mason Miller at that 4 spot, who's been playing well. He's shooting 55% from 3.
Ashworth was 7 assists against Georgetown. That's pretty good.
And that was
and
I thought he was really good at getting spots and setting guys up. That's been part of the problem.
1 of 5 from 3 though.
Yeah, that's got to be the next step for them.
Right.
He's got to start hitting shots.
Yeah.
He's getting some good looks. He's getting some open looks and just not hitting.
He's got to think eventually that will
exactly.
come.
He's too good of a shooter for them not to, as long as he keeps getting the good looks. But it's hard to wait for that to happen. It's got to turn quickly, or they're gonna be in trouble here. So that's probably the next key, because Trey Alexander, the way he played in that second half, is all right, that's the dude this team needs. He plays like that, everything else kind of falls into place.
Are you concerned with the number of minutes that Baylor, Shireman, Trey Alexander, and Ryan Kalkbrenner have to play?
Yeah, obviously,
they're playing 35 plus, 30, not even 35. We're talking 38.
Yeah. And Mac actually answered a question about that up at after the game there in Georgetown, and said basically those guys let him know hey, I'm tired, I need a break, and if they don't say anything, they're staying in the game. And what they do is they're willing to give them those heavy minutes totals by reducing their practice time.
Oh, okay.
And so they've got the set up there with Jeremy Anderson and their medical staff and training staff and everything, to where they're monitoring all that. They're making sure nobody goes over their load. So if you play 38 minutes in a game, then you're going to get less reps in practice. And so they're trying to, Max said, like, they're balancing that out as best they can. They're making sure they're not, obviously you'd like to get some more, get the bench guys some more minutes.
Farabella's clearly the sixth man.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and they're still struggling a little bit with that backup 5 spot. Fred King's kind of swimming in a little bit. Need to get a little bit more
is Fred
out of
or
him.
Isaac? Can Isaac learn it and not,
Yeah, Isaac Trout's been in a little rough patch recently, but I have confidence that he'll kind of step back in. Mason and Isaac have been going back and forth all season. They've gotten enough out of that spot, so. But that is kind of the rotation at this point. And yeah, I mean, Baylor played 38 minutes at Georgetown, which not
Trey
ideal.
And Baylor played all 40 against Marquette.
Yeah, so not ideal. But if you're, I don't think internally they're that worried about that because of the system they have in place to make sure that. I think in game you worry about heavy legs late in a game if you need guys to make a shot, and that's maybe something where all right. Coaches have to be cognizant of that, and the guys are like, "All right, hey, it is. I need to get a break now so that I'm strong."
And they're
enough
old
to finish.
and they're pretty
they know their
veteran
bodies well
players.
enough, yeah.
At this point, you got to feel pretty good about where they're at. So let's look ahead a little bit. You have Providence, which now with the injury and
Bryce Hopkins suffered a season-ending knee injury,
ACL injury. That should be a top 25 win on Saturday. At home, right? I mean, if it's not, you're like, well, what happened? So that'll, bump up a little bit, help a little bit. Resume building, it's a top 25 win.
Yeah.
So, with all the metrics will look good on that. It's just eyeballs from a committee that might not and might know. The metrics don't play in that part. And then you have this run of DePaul and St. John's. So you have these 4 games with the Georgetown game, very winnable games, right? Like
take care of business.
Yeah,
then you 4 in a row heading to UConn.
At Stores is a little different.
And the stretch is big to build confidence to fix to kind of iron out some of the wrinkles that have caused them problems
Seton
recently.
Hall's playing really well too.
Yeah.
So
right
after UConn, they'll probably just stay out there. I'm guessing maybe.
Wednesday, Saturday, so that's it. These next few games are big for, again, kind of getting to where they need to be able to face a team like UConn, especially on the road, because Huskies are playing quite well this season, outside of the blip at the start of conference play. It's an important stretch here for Creighton for confidence sake, for momentum, for finding out, like, you can't. If we're still trying to, we get through that stretch and it's still like, all right, they got to find some things. Then they're in trouble. You're starting to run out of time. Like, you should not
close game to DePaul or something. It's like what?
Yeah. So like, if they still can't get over the hump, then it's fair to start like, all right, kind of running out of time for things to turn around. This might just be who they are. So important stretch coming up. I think.
I mean, hey, I just knocked DePaul, but like they got a decent win. Like, I don't know how. They got an okay win, I guess. Louisville and Chicago State. Chicago State beat Northwestern.
Yeah, that's weird. But not weird is the season that Baylor Shireman has had. I think it's worth kind of highlighting what he's done at this point. He is leading the conference in scoring. Yeah. He is 7th in rebounding and 8th in assists. So,
pretty good.
Top 10, all 3 of the kind of major
like
categories
of the year
there.
Stuff.
Yeah, he's right up there. Like, if Creighton makes a run, he'll very much be in the discussion there. Shooting 45 from the field, 37 from 3. He's been much more of a well-rounded player this year in terms of getting in the paint, making plays for others and himself. Had a few rough games have kind of hurt his 3-point percentage after a great start to the season. Last couple have kind of turned that around for him. He was ridiculous. He gave them a chance to win that Marquette game, coming off of a rough one against Villanova. And then Georgetown, he put him on his back in the first half, kept them afloat until Trey was able to take over, who finished with season high 25 with 18 in the second half. And Trey's kind of all over He's 5th in scoring and 6th in assists, and just outside the top 10 in rebounding as well. So those two, I mean, you're getting almost 32 points, almost 13 rebound or almost 14 rebounds between, or sorry, more than that. I was looking at Kalkbrenner's numbers. Yeah. 35 points, 15 rebounds, and 9 assists between those two. Aren't many teams that have a combination like that, and so when those two guys are playing well,
and Trey's just shooting 30% right now from 3, so.
And that was 3-5 against Georgetown. That was good to kind of get him out of that rut.
That needs to get back up to the 30, the Mendoza line of 35%.
35, because he's creating more than he did last year with the ball in his hands more.
Yeah, they need him to, especially late in the game situations.
But yeah, he's got to be able to knock down the ones when they do get him the good ones.
Mason Miller shooting 54%.
Yeah, that's pretty darn good. So there's still a lot to like here. Obviously, it's looked pretty rough for stretches. I'd say there are definitely some flaws there in terms of athleticism, in terms of the point guard spot, in terms of initiating things. They've got to kind of work through some of that, but I think it's important to remember they also have some pretty darn good skills, and there aren't many teams that have a combination like Baylor Shireman, Trey Alexander, and Ryan Kalkbrenner.
So you're saying calm down.
Yes, I think just
calm down.
There's some things to worry about. It's gonna be okay, but I don't know that all right, this is just what it's going to be the rest of the season. They've got no shot. I think it's far too early to say all goals are off the table.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah,
that's the key.
Yeah, we'll cycle back after we get through this next stretch here, and again, once you get through the UConn Seton Hall, then it's all right, we'll have a better idea of what this team really is. Right. But in the meantime, coming off the win there, a chance to secure a big one on Saturday. It'll be interesting to see Devin Carter, who has made a huge leap for Providence, one of the best on-ball defenders in the conference, and he's now their leading scorer. Him and Trey, that battle and the execution on both sides, that's going to be fun to watch. If Trey has a good game against Carter, then you start feeling okay, he's the dude. He's back. He's the guy that we thought we were going to see from him. So that's what I'll be watching on Saturday, and we'll come back next week to break it all down.
Everything else.
Blue Jay Breakdown.
All right, that'll do it for Blue Jay Breakdown with Jacob Padilla and Mike Sautter.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.